Good afternoon. Great to see you all again back here at the main stage. I hope you had very interesting and very insightful sessions in the last hours. And now we are not entering the final yet. One could say it's a semi-final, but I can tell you, a crispy one. This one really is a highlight, I can tell you in advance, because the briefing calls already were. So let's take a different position for the afternoon. We would like to move forward from analyzing the problem to answering it, to give a plan. What should we do now? Where to go from here? And what kind of ideas and aspects should you all take out of the room later on when you leave? So we have a very, very amazing lineup now from politics, from economics, and from philosophy. And I really have to say we will answer the question how to reform Europe and the EU and how can we reach this goal. So we have three extraordinary speakers and minds this afternoon, and I would like you all to give them a warm welcome. Professor Dr. Luiza Bialasiewicz, Professor Dr. Michel Friedman, and Dr. Daniel Risch, the Prime Minister of Liechtenstein. Please. Yeah, great to have you here. Wow, what a lineup. One could say the party has arrived, and I'm looking forward for a very alive debate. To make it concrete at the beginning, from January onwards, we will have or face a different geopolitical situation in regards to Trump and the United States. And for a very first message, what do we need to start or to do now in order to be ready for January? What is your first advice, your first to do? Ladies first.
Thanks so much. So I think we've heard lots of proposals already, and I think a common theme has been starting with Jamila and Derlini telling us last night that we should be ready not just for 4 years of Trump, but 12 years of proto-Trump, which terrified me. I would like to be as optimistic as he was on the notion that somehow Trump and a general situation of crisis will spur Europe to action. I very much hope that is the case. So far, we've seen lots of slogans, but slogans that we've been hearing since 2019, since when the first von der Leyen Commission came into office. If you remember, self-defined a geopolitical commission, very much aiming for a stronger Europe. Now, I think we definitely need to go beyond slogans. I mean, we can cite many other slogans. Emmanuel Macron telling us recently that we cannot be herbivores, to be devoured by the carnivores of this world. But the problems remain, and I think one of the greatest challenges, again, many speakers have already highlighted it, is that European governments, even within European institutions, there remain profound divisions regarding not just what is to be done, but even an assessment of the situation, not just of the security environment, and that's very important, but of what we are really facing. So that's, I think one challenge. Although, and here I'll add, I guess a small parenthesis, I am concerned that in many quarters, the advent of Trump is also seen as an opening for individual deal-making. And several other speakers have noted that as well. And I think that would be very worrisome. Only a united Europe can face these challenges. But I will add one final thing, and then pass it on to my colleagues here on stage. If European governments remain divided on what is to be done and an assessment not just of the security environment but of the economic challenges, European citizens remain even more divided. And I think, kind of perceptions of, how Europe should act, and here I mean both the EU institutions and how Europe should face these different challenges. At the level of European societies, there are even more widely divergent, I think, both threat perceptions but also assessments of the situation. And I'll be happy to come back to that, because I think without engaging citizens in this discussion, we will have a very hard time in formulating a united European response. So I will leave it at that.
Michel, the middle.
I'm very alarmed that Trump was re-elected. The first time he was elected, a lot of people worldwide, and also the Americans, could have said, we didn't know who is really Donald Trump. But after the first term, everybody knows who is Donald Trump. He is a criminal, he's a liar, he's a racist, he's a man who is changing all that what we are believing in arguments, in debates, human rights. He's playing a game which is called the strongest will win. And from this perspective, he's equal to China's representatives and to Russia's representatives. And your question was, what is the geostrategical point of view? We have three players, the most important ones. Two are dictatorships. One is a democratic elected man who, from my point of view, is not somebody who is representing democracy. Even he was elected with a democratic election. We have three superpower states who are dealing with the idea the strongest will win. We know that humanity, not only in our individual life, but also in the existence of countries, after World War II, was built with the idea that not the strongest is anymore the one who defines what the future is, but even the smallest, Liechtenstein, for example, has in every institution, every international institution, the same vote than countries who are 10, 100,000 times bigger, 1 million times bigger than you are. And we are losing this idea because President Xi and President Putin told us openly that the 21st century will be the 10th century where autocracies will win and democracies will lose. So I'm taking these statements very, very seriously, and we have, not in Europe, I think we have to learn that the European Union is not Europe. The continent of Europe is not the EU. But if we watch what is going on in the EU, we have countries like Hungary, which is not a democracy today anymore. We have a country like Romania, who elected last week a right extremist, pro-Russian president. We have countries like Italy, who are very proud to say that the government who is leading Italy is a post-fascist party. I named only a few of them. That means also in the European Union, we are now endangered by anti-democratic, right extremist governments, which is not the same like the countries are, but we have these governments. We learned after the war, and the war didn't start 22, the war in the Ukraine started 2014. We learned that the war as an instrument of policy is coming back and is a clear reality in our world. And taking all this together, the 21st century will be defined in the next 5 to 10 years if the world as we knew it till now will be the future, or our future will be totally another one.
So, and for you, it's a bit quicker, please.
Yes, I try to, but I'd like to echo on that. But the first thing is, we are on an event saying for a stronger Europe, and the first question is about what do we do with Trump? And I think that's a reflex we in Europe often have. If we feel weak, we look to the United States. And this reflex has to stop. And we have to look to Europe, how we can become stronger within Europe. And I'd like to echo on what you said. The European Union might be the heart of Europe, but it's not Europe. I mean, we have Switzerland not being a European country in the European Union, but being a strong democracy, strong European country like UK, like Norway, Liechtenstein as well, and Iceland and some others that feel really strong European, being European countries, but not within the European Union. And we have to see this as a whole, and we have to come together to build a strong Europe back. And I was recently at an event that was headlined with Rebooting Europe. And what we are doing at the moment, we have a new commission. We did not talk about that now, but we can talk
really
about it.
not.
We have a new head at the Council of Europe in Strasbourg. We will have a new government in Germany. We will probably have one in Paris as well. So we are rebooting Europe at the moment, and we should reboot a stronger Europe together.
It's a very interesting point. I would start from here because given the fact that you just pointed out, is it really the right way to say 47 states need to have the same view, the same opinion, or even 27? Isn't it maybe better to have a smaller group agreeing on certain values and on certain steps and say, hey, we choose 20 or 22 who agree on the military, the security, as well as the economic perspective?
I think you need both. You need a strong European Union, you need a strong center, but you need strong national states as well, or small entities like you need in a society. You need families, you need clubs and things, and you need the great. And if you have weak societies, you will have weak nation states, and you will have a weak Europe. And we have to have it all on top and on the bottom.
Still now, we had France and Germany who bridged the European Union, but there again, the idea is even though we are the strongest, or even by population the biggest, every country, also small membership countries, have the same vote. I want to point out, by all this what we talked, the European Union is the biggest success story we had in Europe since hundreds of years. There was no war by membership of members of the European Union. The problem we have, or we had, is that the imagination to think we are a continent, or we are some countries who are living a life in a country of milk and honey, made us weak. And the decadence of this idea was tranquilizing us for the last 20 years. And we are deeply, or we had deeply lost time. Other countries in the world, in this beautiful earth, were quicker as we are, were stronger as we are today. And it's, again, now the next 5 to 10 years will decide, can Europe wake up, and can Europe fulfill the duties we need? And here again, that's your point with Trump. We know that we need a security system for our countries, which is today ridiculous. With all due respect to Switzerland, with all due respect to Liechtenstein, even to Germany, we are not able as nations to defend ourselves. So are we able to transform with the European Union for 450 million people a defense system, yes or not? If we will not be able, Russia will continue the imperialistic idea that they had, not starting with the Ukraine. We had this in Syria, we had this in Georgia. So one of the points we need are also visions that states are giving up their national crucial points like we did with the euro. Here again, the euro is a success story. All the crises we had, also in 2007-8, all the financial crises we had, were only at the end a success because the euro was given, and this was a revolutionary idea. The same revolutionary idea is that we need, for example, for security, but other examples we'll talk about, a commitment that we are able to give up some of our most important identity points, because for the 21st century it will not be enough. And it's not a Trump problem. President Obama was also saying at his time, hey, Europe, you are not for us the small children in our family, and it's time to get adult.
So,
Luiza,
I mean,
you're
I
already
think, you know,
dancing
kind of
with
to
the
follow up on both of those things, because I think we have concrete proposals on how to proceed, and many of them have already been mentioned. So, you know, several speakers between yesterday and today cited the Draghi report, the Letta report, which give us ways to go forward. I mean, we should also rethink, reconsider qualified majority voting on certain issues, very much so. But I think, you know, I'd like to go back, you know, to the other issue, because we need to have societal buy-in here, right? Because I think one of the big problems is saying we're going to, you know, kind of go forward with a European industrial defense strategy. Great. I mean, the Draghi report also has proposals for common borrowing, for a kind of next-gen EU. Wonderful. We then have to somehow bring this to the ground and convince skeptical publics that are, as I said, even more divided than member state governments, you know, and even beyond the EU. So I'll just cite you one example. Tomorrow, there's a general strike in Italy. So besides the fact that I'm hoping I'll be able to get home to Venice somehow, one of the demands formulated by two of the trade unions is an end to all wars, very broad, and European funding to supporting wars, including funding to Ukraine. Now you may ask, I mean, how is that related to crumbling infrastructures in Italy or salary, you know, salary negotiations? But that connection is made. And so if we're going to boost European defense budgets, if we're going to build a common security architecture beyond what we already have, decoupling from NATO, within NATO, whatever, we have to convince our citizens that they're not going to be paying for the trade-offs, that there isn't a trade-off between, you know, infrastructural investment and boosting defense capacities. And that is much more difficult, also because forces on the extremes, both the far left and the far right, have seized upon this, you know, as a way of undermining any common, you know, European proposals in this direction. So I think that's a huge challenge that we have to face, absolutely.
So, Dari, how do you feel? You are not a member, your country isn't a member of the EU, but do you feel like there is, as we have the theme Home Alone, do you feel really home alone, or do you have a connecting point where you say we share the values, as Michel mentioned already, we are truly European, we don't have a military, but we feel safe because we are all neighbors and partners? How is it for you?
No, we don't feel home alone, not at all. So we decided 30 years ago to enter the European Economic Area, so that's the closest integration form to the European Union, and in 1978 we joined the Council of Europe, and as a matter of geography, we are a European country, and feeling very European with an attitude to give more than you could expect from our size. And this is something we really try to do. So we had the presidency in the Council of Europe just last year for half a year, and that was so important for us to be in this European family, trying to bring human rights and all these very important things to live with all the other countries. So I think it's not only geography, it's also values throughout Europe, but we have to be careful because I mean, I just read yesterday in a Swiss newspaper that Russia's economy is going down and sanctions are working. On the other hand, we must admit that Russia's plan is working as well, because they're destabilizing Europe and our countries and our societies. And this is something we have to be aware of and try to fight back on this very level, I think.
So, given the fact you just mentioned, Michel, values obviously aren't enough. So how do we point out our interests, and how do we balance interests and values in our community of Europe, not only the EU?
That's a very complicated question. Being a philosopher, it's one of the human questions at all. We know that we are living very often in dilemmata. We know that we have conflicts where also human rights are in conflict to each other. But our word is an economical word, still, and I don't want now to discuss if this is right or wrong. It's fact. For example, the growth and the importance of China was due to unbelievable economical growth for the last 20 years. The power of China is at the beginning and will continue to be an economically one. So all of our states, including Switzerland, everybody's orientated, money, money, money makes the world turn. And that's one of the facts, which is a crucial problem with values. We are dealing with countries who are murdering their own population. We are dealing with state leaders who are on from the values, living and protecting values from the 18th, 19th century. Women's rights, human rights are not existing. I will not speak about Iran or Saudi Arabia or some countries who are our partners, Turkey, etc. We have a different perspective of how societies have to be built up. Education, facts are fighting against believing or lies, which is the same. And we are feeling that the 21st century is endangering much more states like our states than these states who are growing without human rights, without values. We are aware of this. I remember I talked once to a leader of a very important and international terror organization, and he told me, you know what, I tell you what your problem is. You like human beings. We don't. And this is a point where we will always be more successful than you are. Sure, if you don't have any values, you fight whatever it is, and you are stronger on the first point of view. I would say the only thing we have are our values. This is the USP of the European Union. This is the USP of America. With all the mistakes we're doing in the years again and again, we are the only community who is discussing about their own mistakes. So what I want to strengthen up is we have to rediscuss in the 21st century, also with the younger generations, what are our values, also translated in the time we are today, and do we want to protect them? Do we want to fight for them? And I have to tell you, I'm very enthusiastic to fight for values. It's the only thing we have. If we are losing this, we are like all in this world. And you can see how marvelous and miraculous democracy is, that people want to immigrate in our countries. It's not only because we are wealthy states. It's not only because Europe is a fantasy or the United States. It's because these people are coming for countries where they are, as an individual, nothing, nobody. And they heard that there are countries where you are not only allowed, it's your right to have the right to be a human being. And that's why whatever we will talk for the future, and we have to talk about a lot of things, if we are losing human rights, if we are losing the state of law, if you are losing this, what is democracy, we lost everything, not only our economical wealth, but we will finish as Europe was 100 years ago. It's not so long time ago that all these people here didn't have the life we have today. That's why I advocate democracy for the future more than even and ever before.
So it's a takeaway, I would say, already from your perspective, from your position, for all of us to say we need to fight for our values. I really like this as a conclusion, and Luiza, I would like then to go one step further and say we kind of in Europe missed the boat in regards to military security, also to our economy currently. But do we really set the right priorities? Because we are really good in regulations, we are really good in data protection, but we don't really reach anything with all of that.
So, I mean, I would go back to what was just said, because I think it would be really a danger, and I think we risk slipping into that with, all the narratives of a strong Europe, geopolitical Europe. And I say this as a political geographer. I'm supposed to do geopolitics, but there is a danger to those discourses because somehow they're counterposed to norms. So, acting strong in the world, as a military power somehow is seen as necessary, necessarily contradictory to values, which it absolutely is not. There are some issues, though. First, there's Europe's, and here maybe we can focus on the EU external posture and its, kind of increasing loss of credibility, certainly in the global south, double standards. We can keep kind of going on here. But once more, even within, convincing Europeans this is a worthy pursuit. And here, our democracy, our openness places us at risk, not just at the risk of, foreign intervention, external actors. There was a wonderful session this morning on, how do we deal with disinformation, with Elliot Higgins, kind of talking to us a little bit about the work of Bellingcat. And the fact that this has to be a kind of whole society approach. We are at war also in that sense. And I think also, just kind of starting from the recognition that we are at war, and I don't say this lightly. So, there are many wars going on. And I think maybe it is useful to use that terminology. It doesn't necessarily have to be militaristic and, extreme. It can mean many things. If it can spur us to action, then perhaps it's the right thing to recognize. But, also at war to protect what we have built, without any arrogance. And this is, without taking on some kind of, colonial, we will teach this to the whole world attitude, but recognizing, what has been built in Europe, which is incredible. It's an incredible set of achievements.
Yeah, but I would like to come back to the priorities we said now, or we should or need to urgently. So maybe, Daniel, you can respond to that.
Yes, I'd like to echo on that, because, the values and fighting for the values and really come together in Europe and is so important, and we have to see it from that perspective, that these values, so like freedom and we can live really in Europe, is something the others would like to have, at least the people, not the countries, and that they misuse it sometimes. So if we have free trade, but we let China and US in just freely, and they do different things, then we have to protect and we have to protect together our values because we believe that it's worth to do so. And we discussed it downstairs, and I think that's such an important thought. We just don't know how good it is to live in Europe anymore, because for the last 30 years we had no war, as you said, with the European Union. We had just globalization, free trade, digitization, everything. There was only one way, that was the way up. Then came Corona. Economically, yeah. Then came Corona, we were limited, and now we have war in Europe. And so we really have to rethink, and I think that's the most important thing. We have to rethink, because it's not going straight the road we came.
Can I just jump in on that? Because I think you're right. I mean, and you know, I've just said it myself. I mean, we need to be aware of what we have been able to build. But Europe is not an equal space. And again, I say this as a geographer. Right. There are profound divisions among EU member states, within the wider Europe, but also within our societies. And that is the vulnerability that we need to address. I mean, there is a reason that people are being drawn not just to extreme political movements and parties, but also to conspiracies. There are distinct reasons that people are questioning the European project and, leaving openings also to foreign interference. So profound sense of insecurity, precarity, in many parts of Europe, among important parts of our societies. And if those are not addressed, it will be very difficult to build a common security culture or any common sense of purpose. And I think that needs to be part of the equation as well.
But even though we have also to fight and to convince the population, let me say a lot of member countries, are getting subsidiary from the European Union, and we have a very political, I think not very intelligent, but effective strategy. When something is going wrong in one of the countries, the prime ministers will generally say it was Brussels. When something is going well because of Brussels, they will say it was me. Sure. So we are in the 21st century. We have to be aware of there is a fight against democracy, because democracy is the only real enemy for dictators. When the population in these countries, and with the social media, it is easier to see how others are living. And it's not only economically how they are living, they can see every film. I mean, do we really have in conscience what it means, what a privilege it is to see every film, to buy every book, to go into theaters where not the Minister of State of Culture is defining what we see? So what I want only to say is, if we don't appreciate and learn again to appreciate our privileges, and even though cynically we talk about economy, to invest into a democratic state is always better than in a dictatorship state. If we will not do this, and if we will not protect ourselves, nobody will protect us, and we will be taken over. And my point is only, we lost 20 years. We lost 20 years. As you just mentioned, economy was the main value. Why not? But during these 20 years, 2 generations forgot that the values to have fun, to be happy, even though you grow with your income, is that you are a free person, that you are free. And we have to reactivate it, the combination of all these values. If not, we will be taken over by another form of state, and I don't want this. I mean, I am a Jewish child. My parents survived the Holocaust, and what a beautiful privilege for me as their son was to live, even though in Germany, but in Europe, a part of Europe, freedom and peace. And I want to have this as a continuation for my children too. It's a time to wake up and to fight for that.
Yeah, applause. I think this is a kind of hopeful and enthusiastic statement, and with an eye on the timekeeper, I would like the other two, please, also to give us some constructive impulse we all take away from 2 days talking and debating about Europe and how we should act and what to do. So, Luiza, if you have a
Sure.
message for our
If
audience.
I have a message, yeah, I mean, and I would echo what Michel just said. I mean, also as the child of Polish Jews, I mean, for me, Europe was hope. I mean, it is, an incredible achievement. And I mean, I think we need to consider that. But what can we do? What can we learn? And I was told I should also kind of think of what Switzerland can add to this. So we've been talking a lot about the two reports that were commissioned by the Commission, the Letta report and the Draghi report. But some of you may know that the Commission commissioned also a third report from the former Finnish Prime Minister, Sauli Niinisto, and I apologize if I am butchering his name, if there are any Finns in the room, on preparedness and the role of European citizens. And if you haven't read it, I would encourage you to read it. 164 pages of very interesting, advice, thinking about how do we put all of these together? How do we convince Europeans that it's worthwhile living in open societies? And one of the things that he argues there is that we need to involve everybody in thinking about European security, in thinking about making a stronger Europe. Not just by extending defense capacities, but literally by engaging civilians, all of society, literally, in, we could think of a very Cold War total defense kind of scenario that Switzerland is very familiar with, or other neutral countries that have experimented it, but really engaging everybody in this project, because that is the only antidote, he claims, against divisions in European societies, and against also attempts at undermining trust in institutions. I don't know how effective it will be, but I think that is such an important step forward, is really bringing everybody on board to see that there are no trade-offs. If we decide to become a geopolitical Europe, that it's not taking anything away from anybody.
There would be so much to say, but I will do it briefly. So,
But also say 1, 2, 3.
No, 1, 2, 3. No, the first thing is, yes, we do have a common ground, and it's our continent. And the second thing is we do have common values, but, and that's for me the most important thing, we are diverse, from Iceland to Armenia, from Portugal to Estonia, from Switzerland to Germany. We are diverse, and I think we have to see it as a strength. We should see us as a Team Europe, where every country, every nation can bring in the strength. We are not equal, but we do have a common aim, like a team has a common target, and we should work together and use the strengths of all of us. And then I think we will have a strong Europe in the future.
But not to be too optimistic. We have a backflash.
We have to be optimistic.
But we have a backflash. Even in this united Europe, we have a backflash, a certain feeling, a need for authoritarian regimes. This is a very, very deep challenge.
That's true.
It's a deep challenge. But finally, I'm coming back. I am sure that the majority of our population, especially the young generation, who got a feeling what freedom is convincible to fight for it, for a future in respect, for a future where nature is also respected, and for a future in which you don't laugh about somebody who is reading serious books. Perhaps this is naivety, but when I'm traveling around the world, and I'm coming back to Frankfurt, or to Berlin, or to Paris, where I was born, or to the Netherlands, to Liechtenstein, to Switzerland, which is still not a member of the UE, which is a mistake. But when I'm coming back in these countries and I see the border control, I'm so happy. I don't feel fear. In all the other countries, immediately I feel fear because I know I have no rights in China. I have no rights in Russia. And that's why I think the idea of freedom will grow if we will fight for it.
We do have a backlash, I agree, but we have to be optimistic because we
We
do
have to act.
Yes,
We have
that's
to
the
act.
second point.
And that's what
we
I
have
want
a
to
common vision,
Yeah,
and we have to work
act
hard
today.
Yes.
So we
That's
agree
true.
in this round, and I think it's a good spirit for all of us. We have to act, we have to be thankful, we need to protect, and we need to fight and stand up for what we aim and what our values. Thank you so much, the three of you, and this is your applause.